Okay, hello everyone. My name is Jillian Baldessari. I am from the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Program and Events Coordinator here. Would just like to introduce myself and to introduce the webinar to everyone. So this is one of our first-time homebuyer workshop series, basically detailing everything you need to know about buying a home, things like credit, loan approval, stuff like that. This will be posted to the website afterwards. If anyone has any questions, you can just put them in the chat. The chat is on and we will get to them. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to start the presentation and then I'm going to introduce my panelists. Alrighty, just give me 1 second, everyone. Okay. And, alrighty, so this workshop is in coordination with the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce, SIBOR, and TD Bank. And the workshop is Understanding Credit and Finding the Right Realtor when looking for your dream home. Alrighty, let's meet the presenters. Alrighty, so these are the people presenting. They're wonderful. They have a lot of expertise in the realm of first-time home buying. So we have Scott Sotero. He is SIBOR's 2019-2020 president and broker owner of Realtor Realtors Evolution Group. Then we have Peter Chase, mortgage loan officer, TD Bank. And then we have Laura Bolsario, New York State licensed real estate broker from Gateway Arms Realty. Okay. Alrighty, Scott, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you very much, Jillian. Again, my name is Scott Sotaro. I am the 2019-2020 Staten Island Board of Realtors president. Basically, we are a largest trade organization in America, and in Staten Island, we are 2,300 agents strong, working all together through our MLS system to deliver the best service that we possibly can to people like yourselves. I want to congratulate everybody today for taking part in this workshop. I believe there is no better time to own real estate. I always have a saying that the best time to buy real estate is yesterday. I believe that real estate in the long term is the greatest investment. It's built the most wealth for people, again, over the long term. And that's basically, all I really want to say. I just want to, again, congratulate everybody for taking that step and trying to learn a little bit more about home ownership. And I want to thank the panel as well for being here.
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it. Alrighty, and Scott is from SIBOR. He's the president, and we are partnering with SIBOR today, and also TD Bank. And I have Peter Chase from TD Bank up next. Are you ready, Peter?
I am.
All right.
And hello, everyone who's tuned in to learn more about the credit, how important credit is as you're planning to buy a new home. It's a critical component. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you, Scott and Laura, for collaborating with this with me today. So we're going to go through a credit awareness workbook. The goal is to help you understand how important credit is, what to do as you're planning to buy a home to make sure that your credit is on track. And then if there are problems when you discover, how you can get them fixed so we can help you complete that purchase. As Jillian said, I'm Peter Chase. I'm a mortgage loan officer with TD Bank. I've been with TD Bank about 2 years. I have 7 years before that at Chase. And I was with another bank before that in the mortgage lending industry. So I have helped hundreds of people to buy new homes. And it's been my pleasure to help you if that's something that's in your plans. So let's get started. So we're going to discuss how credit scores and reports impact your financial opportunities, discover and prioritize ways to build, maintain, and repair your credit, discuss some common credit misconceptions and some frequently thought questions about it, and how to access, navigate, and understand your credit report. Tips and strategies for having credit cards, which are an integral part of building a credit history, and discuss some next steps and resources to learn more. Okay, next slide, please. So these are some of the questions that people ask. We'll go through those. If you have particular questions, post them in the memo board, and we'll go through them later. So does checking my own credit lower my score? No. It is your right as a consumer to check your credit scores. You can go to Annual Credit Report, and that is an organization you can contact directly. It's supported by the 3 credit bureaus, and you can check your credit through there, or you can go directly to any one of the 3 credit bureaus once a year. So technically, you could be checking your credit 3 times a year with no impact to your credit scores. How often should you check your credit report? Well, if you're planning a big purchase like a home, you should be checking your report before you get started. I've had people's dreams sort of dashed because they have been unprepared and come to see me to apply for a mortgage and realize there was something terribly wrong with their credit report. Had they had the foresight to look at it ahead of time and get it fixed, I'm just saying it's a good idea. So how often should you check a report? I would say once a year, at least. And possibly more than that if you follow what I was just saying, where you can go to each of the agencies once a year. What do you do if there's incorrect information? You definitely need to address it. And we'll go through what the procedure is, of how you can get things corrected. All right, some of the other questions: how is your score calculated? There's a slide which we'll show you how that is. There's a pie chart. How do I improve my score? In what financial situations is credit being checked? All of those situations that are detailed, from getting an apartment to getting a job to buying a car to buying a home, your credit is being checked. How does it impact my score when a lender checks it? Should I only have one credit card? Should I maintain a credit account where I hold my checking account? And how do I choose the best credit card? So these are all questions people have, which hopefully we'll have answers for as we proceed through this. Next slide, please. Okay, how is a strong credit score going to help you? It's going to help you in many ways. In our society, it's extremely important to have a strong credit score, strong credit scores, and a credit history. Like I said, it impacts your ability to get a job, rent an apartment, as well as when you're planning to buy a home, and many other circumstances. So it's really important to have a strong credit history. Next slide, please. How does credit influence our daily lives? Well, we're moving toward a cashless society. We're using our credit cards for everyday purchases. It's very difficult to buy an airplane ticket if you don't have a credit card. So everyone needs credit in their lives. And the credit scores that you have are an indication to a lender, like a mortgage lender, like TD Bank or any mortgage lender, of how well you've managed your credit scores in the past. So it's really important to have the highest scores possible. It'll also affect ultimately the kind of interest rate that you'll be awarded, because the people with the best credit get the best offers for mortgages because they're responsible with their credit. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's some examples of different credit scores. There are 3 credit bureaus. If it was a live classroom, I'd ask you to name them, but since we're doing this, since you're probably muted, it's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Each score has slightly different pricing models. So when you check your credit report, each of these 3 agencies will report with a FICO report, which is Fair Isaac. They will be reporting separately. A bank will look at the 3 scores and use the median score. There's slightly different variables on how it's determined. So you'll have a range of scores, but this will give, for this person's example, they've got a score of 726, a score of 698, and a score of 711, okay? So as I mentioned, mortgage lenders for the most part use FICOs to determine. There are other scoring models. I believe Wells Fargo is using VantageScore, but but TD and Chase, when I was there, also use FICO. And that is sort of like the industry standard. It's a tri-merge report, so you get one credit, you consent to one credit pull. We'll pull from all three agencies into a consolidated report. It'll give you it gives the lender a full history on you as a creditor from the very beginning. It goes back to the first credit card you opened and how you've maintained those accounts. So it's important to not close out early credit cards. You can bring them down to zero, but leave them open, because if you close out your old cards, it'll shorten your credit history, and you want as long a history as possible, especially when you're planning to buy a home. Next score, please. Next page, sorry. All right. So here is, in the previous, we were talking about questions about credit. People ask, well, what kinds of things influence the scores that I ultimately have? And here is a pie chart, which kind of gives you a breakdown. 35% of your credit scores is impacted by your payment history. So it's really important to pay your creditors on time or early for the best impact on your credit scores, okay? 30% is amounts owed, and this is something people don't realize. If you have a credit line of, let's say, $10,000, you should not use more than 10% of that line for longer than 30 days for the best impact on your credit scores. Because if you use a larger percentage of your line and leave it outstanding 30 days or longer, it's going to impact your credit scores. So 30% of your credit scores is the amounts owed, okay? 15% is the length of your credit history. Like I was saying, don't close out your older lines. If you've stopped using them, they're not top of wallet, bring them down to zero and leave them alone. Let the bank close them out eventually. If you call up and close them out because you don't want them anymore, you're actually shortening your credit history and you're negatively impacting yourself, okay? 10% of your scores are impacted by new credit applications. If you go and over apply for new credit, it's going to bring down your scores. We'll go through how many active lines of credit it's recommended that you have, and by all means, if you do not have adequate credit, you should plan a strategy for establishing it. But once you do have that established credit profile, you should go easy on opening new lines of credit right and left, particularly if you're trying to keep the highest scores possible because you're planning to buy a home, that's your goal. Because if you open too many. Now you'll go into a retail environment and they'll say, oh, I'll give you 10% off today if you open a store charge. You may not need that store charge. So think about it before you agree to that 10% discount. It may be hurting you. The types of credit that you apply for also will affect your credit score factors. So next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned a little earlier, there are 3 credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And Jillian, I think this slide will be available to them so they don't have to quickly write down, but here is the website address and phone numbers. If you want to reach out to any one of these agencies, it's your right as a consumer, and you can do this once a year. If you're curious what your credit score is looking like at this particular agency, by all means. There is this annualcreditreport.com it was put together by these 3 bureaus so that consumers would have a sort of a centralized location to go to understand and request their credit report. So it's a really good resource. Going on this does not impact your scores. It's a resource to you to help you understand what it is. It has valuable information about your credit history, and it's important to check, and we'll go into this as we continue through this slideshow. It's important to know because there can be errors in your credit report, and if you discover it, it's important that you know how to fix it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is an example of what this person, Marie, who checked her credit report, found. This is typically what you'll see. So you're going to find your name, your social security number, and your address on the credit report. It's also going to have previous addresses. Sometimes it might even have work addresses. It's really any address that was used to establish credit in your name, and it should probably go back to the beginning. It may not always go back to the very beginning, but you'll often see previous addresses and so forth. Okay, so don't be surprised if an apartment you rented 10 years ago shows up on your credit report, because your landlord or the agency that represented them may have pulled credit when, before they issued you a lease. Okay, in Marie's credit report, she can see that she has 2 credit cards in active use, and she can see the credit line, and then she can see how much of the credit line she's actually gone in and charged on. Okay, Marie happens to have a car loan, and in her instance, she's showing that there's a late payment, and they do it on 30-day increments. So they show up as 30-day late, 60-day late, 90-day late. Those are real blemishes on your report. You do not want anything showing up on your credit report as 30-day late. Okay. There's usually a grace period from when you can pay and not have a blemish, but if you let it go past 30 days, it's going to show up in your credit report and it have a negative impact. So I was saying it's really important to pay your credit card on time or early. Now, people have said to me, well, I was a little late, but I paid off the whole thing on day 40. It's really better to pay the minimum payment earlier on time than it is to be late and pay the whole thing off. I know that may sound counterintuitive, but it is the truth. So many people automate their payments on their credit cards and car payments and so forth. So you can have the bank pull it for you earlier on time. So in case you forget or you're on vacation, it's never going to go sideways. Okay. So on Marie's report, she also saw the oldest credit report on the report, and that happened to go back 10 years. So she can celebrate 10 years of managing that credit responsibly. Anytime someone is pulling a credit report, it's going to show up as an inquiry by that agency. So if you went to a bank like, TD or Chase or whatever to inquire about a mortgage, it's going to show up as a hard inquiry. If you took out a car loan, it's going to show up as a hard inquiry. So those show up. And anything that's derogatory is also going to show up. So you could see things like tax liens could show up. If you are responsible for child support and you haven't made your payments to your family on time, that could show up. Late payments to alimony, things like that. There can be derogatory things. Also, God forbid, foreclosures or Chapter 11, Chapter 7. These things will show up also. Okay, and the small tip is credit reports can have mistakes, so it's really important to look at them. And if there is something wrong in them, there are ways that you can start to resolve them by sending it in with supporting documentation to the bureau so they can have that removed. And it takes a while. So next slide, please. So this is a checklist, which I don't know if I can barely read it on this slideshow. It is so small. Let's see if I can blow it up here. Can you bring that up a little bit in size, Jillian, or is that not possible? Let's see here. So the things to check is, one is your name spelled correctly. Now it could have variations of your name, and that's okay. AKAs are all right, but if it's flat out wrong, you need to have it corrected. So, a woman might have her maiden name in her credit report and then later have gotten married and taken her husband's name. So you might have variations of your name, but you can check to see that your name is correct. Is your social security number correct? Very important. Is your address correct and current phone numbers correct? Previous addresses will show up. Check on that. Marital status may show up. Your job may show up. So there are all these different details in your credit report for you to go through, including the balances on your credit cards, payment history. So check your personal identification information, check your credit history. If you find a mistake, it's important that you take steps to have that fixed, and we're going to tell you how to do it. Okay, next slide. All right, let me just. Okay, so here are some tips for building, maintaining, and repairing credit. There's no magic formula. It's really common sense. We're all adults. We have to manage our credit responsibly. And if you do so, you'll be rewarded with good credit scores. So pay your bills early and on time, always. If you're a little forgetful, we all have things in our lives that send us sideways, automate it. You can set up, especially with modern banking, you can set it up so the banks will pay it, for you in advance. You won't have to think about it. Don't max out your credit line. This says stable at 30% of the limit. I've been to a credit workshop taught by a credit expert. They say 10. So I would say try to stay below 30 and ideally 10% of the line, net 30. You can use it, of course, if you have a big purchase, see if you can pay it off, okay? Have high credit, let's see. Don't close out your oldest credit card because it'll shorten your credit history. Only apply for new credit accounts that you really need, and fact check your credit reports to make sure that they're accurate, and if not, dispute them. Next slide, please. All right, so these are some suggestions of how if you discover something's wrong in your credit report, what you need to do, okay? You should dispute it, of course, because mistakes can damage your credit. You need to contact the credit bureau and the creditor themselves who is reporting the error. So you're going to be writing to both the credit bureau and the creditor to have this mistake corrected. Okay. You're going to obviously include the account number for the item you feel is inaccurate, why you believe it's inaccurate, and include copies of supporting documentation to back you up, okay? Obviously, keep copies of the documentation and the letter before you mail it off. Don't never send off the original and not keep a copy. And it's recommended you send this letter through the U.S. Postal Service, certified mail, return receipt requested. So you'll have proof that it was delivered to them. Next slide, please. Now, if you discover something is wrong with your credit, it does take time to fix. 30, 60, 90 days, sometimes even longer. So that's why it's important to check early, so that especially if you're planning a new home purchase, you'll have this in progress. So the time comes you buy your home, you won't be impacted. You'll have it fixed already, okay? Steps to build credit. So here's something. When you go to the bank, all right, it's recommended you have 3 to 4 active credit lines, okay? I'm not suggesting that you go into debt by any means, but you should have 3 or 4 active credit lines and use them periodically to keep them active. If you don't have enough credit, go to your bank, go talk to your bank, because that's where you have your money deposited. They also, all banks offer credit cards and so forth. They can suggest a credit card product that's appropriate for your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Some people like to earn points, travel miles. Others, if you have outstanding credit, you might want to look for a low interest rate and transfer it there. But talk to your banker. They can suggest credit card options that are good for you, or do your research online. But I would suggest to have 3 to 4 active lines, because you want if you're establishing credit history for the first time, you want at least a couple of years history. So the lender Because when you go to the bank to get a mortgage, it's probably the largest purchase of your life, and the banks are going to be cautious, and they rely a lot on the information in the credit report before they generate, approve the mortgage for you. So they're going to want a credit history of at least a couple of years. If you don't have a credit history, unfortunately, you can't get a mortgage. So it's important. Okay, and next slide. All right, how can credit cards help and hurt your credit score? Have 3 to 4 active credit lines, use them, manage them responsibly, pay them back on time. It's going to help you. Going hog wild, overly applying for credit, using too much of your lines. Having credit cards is not an invitation to overspend and put yourself into debt. It's simply a tool for modern life that you need to maintain. And so you need to maintain it responsibly. How high your score is an indication of how well you've managed your debts. And the banks need that information before they can approve you for a mortgage. Okay, so credit cards are convenience, especially in modern life and during COVID, where we're not going to stores as much, we're shopping online. You don't have a credit card, it's very difficult. So there's a great convenience factor. Being responsible pays off because paying on time and keeping low balances are great credit score builders. If you're applying for a new card, make sure you read the fine print and make sure you understand what you're responsible for. You don't sign up for a card with an annual fee. You may not be aware of it. Make sure you read the fine print, and if you're going to be paying an annual fee for this card, that it's really going to deliver something of tangible value to you that you can use, okay? Stay in the know, so do your research. Speak to your bankers. Research online. If you get something in the mail, read read it carefully. And if you can always pick up the phone and call your credit card if you can't make the minimum. So here's the thing: if you run into trouble and you can't make your monthly payment on your credit card, before you do anything, call the bank and let them know you're having some financial difficulty. They may be able to work out a deal to preserve your credit scores by working out a payment plan with you. Okay. Here are some resources, places you can check, consumer finance, annualcreditreport.com, MyFICO, Consumer Financial Board, you can contact for questions. So I hope this was useful. I'm Peter Chase, as I said, thank you. Mortgage officer at TD Bank. If any of you are planning a new home purchase, this is a great time. Rates are terrific, and I'd be happy to talk to you on a one-to-one basis. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
All right, thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate that. If anybody has any questions for Peter, they can just write them in the chat and we can get to them at the end. For now, I'm going to stop the screen share, and then Laura Bolsario is going to talk to you about finding the right realtor when looking for your first home. Okay, thank you guys. All righty. And take it away, Laura.
Thank you, Jillian. And thank you, Peter. That was a lot of great information for first-time home buyers. And I just wanted to introduce myself once again, just letting you know that I am a real estate broker. I do have 29 years experience, even though it's hard to believe when I only look 29. But time passes quickly when you're having fun. And I am an owner of Gateway Arms Realty. We're a family-owned and operated full-service real estate agency. We have been serving the Staten Island community since 1977, and we've been a proud member of the Chamber. So the Staten Island Chamber for over 35 years. So I just want to thank the Chamber and for inviting me to participate in this event. And along with Scott Sotero, our board president, and Peter Chase. So I'm hoping I can offer you some valuable tips for those of you who are wondering, how do I find the right realtor? So a real estate agent can help buyers choose a first home, help you with a mortgage, and a lot more. So the process when you first get started, or even prior to getting started, feels quite overwhelming. It can be stressful, it can be intimidating, especially for a first-time home buyer. So having a real estate pro by your side can really make a big difference and help you to get started. So as Peter mentioned, purchasing a new home certainly takes some serious prep work. You do want to, follow Peter's tips. Was really very informative about cleaning up your credit score to, amassing a down payment. But in addition to a lender, you need to find a realtor to help you find homes. If you haven't chosen a lender, realtors are able to provide several choices for you to call. We're also would be able to refer real estate attorneys that can help you through the home buying process. With over 1 million realtors, it's unbelievable the amount of realtors in business today. You definitely want to find one that offers the experience, the knowledge, and find a realtor who abides by the highest standards of professionalism, and more importantly, one that's going to be committed to you and finding you the right home. So most first-time home buyers, their first contact with a realtor is generally over the phone. They see an ad, they see a for sale sign, they're online, and they call the number that's associated. And I think it's a valuable piece of information for first-time home buyers to know the difference between a buyer's agent and a listing agent. I find that a lot of first-time home buyers especially, they are not really privy to what the difference is. So I wanted to just mention some tips as to understanding the difference, right? So a buyer's agent, they're legally bound to help the buyer. So, a listing agent, the real estate agent representing is generally the agent that's representing the home listing, and their fiduciary duty is to the home seller. So, it's important that you understand that it's in your best interest as a buyer to get an agent who's going to represent you. So, you need someone who's diligently going to fight for your interest and your rights. And New York State, some states, but New York State is one of them, recognizes that this could be a problem, and they require a disclosure of agency, especially with a dual agency when you have a broker that's representing both sides of the real estate transaction. So something that I think is really important, just to give you an example, as a new buyer, you're in a neighborhood, you see an open house, you go into the open house, you start viewing, and the listing agent's there, and you're telling them how much you love the home and how you need to really find a home quickly because you're expecting a second child, and your lease where you're renting is up in a short period of time. So this is just an example of where a seller's agent, which is a listing agent, from time to time, or representing the seller, I should say, they could use that information basically to that they know that they're aware that obviously the clock is ticking, and that they may be able to get you to offer more in order to get in where your lease is expiring. That's just an example. So having a buyer's agent is someone that wouldn't be sharing that information, okay? And they would be representing your best interests. So there's several benefits to using a buyer's agent. A buyer's agent is someone who's going to guide you through and answer all your questions and concerns as they come up, because they are working exclusively for you. They ensure that you're pre-approved. for a specific loan amount, because the worst thing to do is start looking before you know what you can afford. It's very hard to go backwards as opposed to, really understanding the property that is within your means. Then the buyer's agents will help you find a property. They're constantly checking the daily hot sheet and the multiple listing service specifically for your search criteria. And that really helps buyers a lot, because it's difficult with all the different websites out there to be following and trying to stay on top of the new and latest listing that hits. And in a competitive market, it's nice to have that buyer's agent who's watching the market and getting you in, scheduling the appointments right away to ensure that you have an opportunity on it. Then the buyer's broker, obviously, buyer's agent also negotiates the offer for you. And again, they're going to negotiate on your behalf. They're going to write up the offer on your behalf, and they're not going to share certain information with the listing agent that may be used against you. So another really big help that a buyer's agent can help you is recommend other professionals. So as I mentioned, mortgage brokers, real estate attorneys, home inspectors, movers, really anything that's going to actually help expedite each step of the process and move you closer to your closing. Buyer's agents also can help overcome some setbacks. Sometimes there's some issues with the home inspection. Sometimes there's issues with appraisals. And the buyer's agent is actually a buffer between you and the seller. So if negotiations become a little heated or difficult, it's nice to have an experienced buyer's agent who can offer productive solutions to some of these concerns. And again, your buyer's agent is working solely for you. So with that being said, I just wanted to make sure that we covered that so that people understand the difference between the listing agent and a buyer's agent, especially as a first-time home buyer. So to move towards, how do I choose the right realtor? I've come up with several different ways. One of, and the most common way of first-time home buyers finding their realtor of choice is through a friend. So friends, family, colleagues, anyone that's has had a positive experience with a particular realtor, they'll tend to recommend. I have experienced it, and I know many other colleagues of mine have represented several generations of families that have bought homes through the same broker or same realtor. So that is, even according to the National Association of Realtors, the highest percentage of first-time home buyers find their realtor through friends, family, colleagues. Another way would be, what neighborhoods do the agents specialize in, right? So you want to find your local expert, someone who possibly lives, resides, works, and breathes in the area that you're looking to move into. And you will notice through different sponsorships, through maybe some local associations in the neighborhood, your church bulletins, you'll see neighborhood signs, and you'll see sponsors and participants in the community that are realtors and seem to sell a large amount of volume in that area. So it's a familiar person. That's another way. A third way would be through a lender. So someone like Peter, sometimes the first-time home buyer meets their lender first, and the lender may recommend several realtors that they feel have been very knowledgeable in the area and that they would feel comfortable recommending. Fourth way I would say is through possibly your real estate attorney. So, there's all different scenarios. Sometimes I'll have a real estate attorney that I've worked with on several different transactions, and they may recommend to you as a first-time home buyer a realtor that they've worked successfully with, and that is very helpful when navigating through the entire buying process, because with their previous clients, because there are some bumps in the road, and you want to be sure that you're in the right hands. Fifth way, for me, I think is online, right? We shop for everything online these days, and finding a real estate agent is no different to many. I think it's very important to go to reputable sites when searching. You want to locate your realtors in the area. You want to use the online tools from your local multiple listing service, as Scott mentioned earlier, on Staten Island, which is the Staten Island multiple listing service, or you can go onto the Staten Island Board of Realtors, SIBOR.com, and you will find a roster of all your local agents, realtors. You can also visit, Realtor.com and many other sites, but I am a firm believer that, your local MLS is your best area to start. You want to take note of a realtor's track record. You want to take a look and see, maybe the number of homes that they've sold, the prices of homes that they've dealt with, and possibly read some testimonials from past clients. But those are, in my opinion, the most common ways that you find a realtor. And then I also suggest that you don't go with just that one recommendation. Okay, so someone else, it might have been the perfect fit for one of your friends, or someone that wrote a testimony on a particular realtor online. So I always recommend that you don't take the first buyer's agent you meet, and that you actually interview and ask questions and meet, at a minimum of 2 or 3. And ask several questions. So I wanted to go over a few questions that I think are really important for you when you're interviewing your buyer's agent. First question, obviously, that I think is really important is, how long have you been in real estate? Okay, so you want to look for a seasoned agent, and they don't need to have decades under their belt, but less than 1 or 2 years, could be concerning unless they are working with another experienced realtor, which tends to happen a lot with newer agents. I also think it's really important to ask the question as to, how long have you lived in this area? If even when it comes to a newly licensed agent, if they shouldn't be automatically removed because they don't have decades of experience, if they have grown up their entire lives in a specific area, I think that they can add a lot of value. Ethics, of course, is a big one for me. You want to be sure that the agent that you're interviewing, is a member of the National Association of Realtors and abides by, our strict code of ethics. That's something that's very important. Another question that I think is extremely valuable is asking the agents what type of properties that they specialize in. Okay, when we're a full service real estate agency or agents or realtors, we basically sell all types of properties, but all of us have certain areas that we specialize in. One in particular would be if you're looking for a co-op. I find that if that is the type of property you're looking to buy, you want to interview and ask these questions and work with an agent who's very familiar with co-ops, because navigating the co-op process is very different from a residential home. Same thing with condominiums, and you may come across an agent who sells residential homes but predominantly sells commercial and investment property. So when you take that into consideration, you want to always remind yourselves that they may not have the current, may not have a good handle on the current market conditions and values on that specific type of property that you're looking for. So I think that's another question you may want to ask. Another question is, does the agent have a team? Do they work alone? What the agent's availability is. I think this is very important. Standalone agents are great. They're excellent. But, I don't want you to ignore the value of a team. Working with a team sometimes can be important because it increases the response time, their availability. Sometimes a solo agent might be double booked, and you want to look at a property and they're not available, so you don't want to lose out on that opportunity. So you always want to ask when you're interviewing the realtors, what their schedule is like as well, and if they have someone that can fill in for them if they're not available. So when it comes to the schedules, a big question you also want to ask is the realtor that you're going to work with. Are they a full-time agent? Are they a part-time agent? So again, especially if you want to see properties that may conflict with the times that they're working at their other jobs, you could lose out on miss out on some of these properties. So again, not saying that a part-time agent can't do an excellent job, but these are just considerations you may want to take and some of the questions you may want to ask as a first-time home buyer with your search, okay? The personality, and obviously personality, I think, means a lot. You spend a lot of time together. You want to make sure that the agent that you're working with, you can connect with, you have a good communication between the two of you, and also that they have some expertise with technology. Today, first-time home buyers are looking for realtors that have a strong focus on technology and the applications in our real estate business. So you want to be sure that you ask those questions. Are they able to text, email, FaceTime if you're not able to, as a first-time home buyer, you're not able to view something. So you do want to ask the potential realtor those questions because it may be extremely important to you. Once you found that special someone, it's then all the fun begins, and it's time to get out and shop around and find your dream home. I hope that some of the information that I shared with you will give you the necessary steps that you need to find the right realtor for this exciting search for you. So again, my name's Laura Bolsario. I do not have a presentation where my name and my phone number is up, so I apologize for that, but please reach out and let me know if there's anything that I can do to help you with this exciting search.
All right, well, thank you, Laura. That was great, very informative. All righty, so if anybody has any questions, we said you can put them in the chat, but no one did. If any of the attendees have questions, you can put them in the chat now. If not, we can close out the webinar. I think that was really great. A lot of good information. I know that I'm nowhere near buying a home yet, but I know everything I need to know, So I hope that everyone enjoyed it. I don't see any questions, so I think we're good. Oh, Oh, Alicia says, both were very informative. Thank you. Well, thank you, Alicia. That was really nice. Alrighty. So thank you so much to all the attendees for coming today. And Asha says, thank you. This was very helpful to my process. Thank you, Asha. Well, thank you for coming, guys. Thank you, Scott, for introducing us. Thank you, Laura, for giving that wonderful presentation about, finding the right realtor. Very informative. And Peter, thank you so much for doing the credit presentation. That was actually very helpful. It's helpful, I think, to anyone, especially someone like that has a credit card, even if you're not buying a home, like to see best practices and do the right thing. So great. Thank you, everyone, and everybody have a great rest of your day. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.